My dad kicked my sister out for cheating with my boyfriend, and they even threw away my engagement ring. Years later, she came crawling back asking for my money. So, this happened when I was 18. At the time, everything seemed fine between me and my family. My older sister, Jenny, was 24, and we were pretty close. After our mom passed away when I was about 10, it was just the three of us, me, Jenny, and our dad. Dad did his best to hold things together, and honestly, he was great. He worked long hours but always made time for us. He raised us on strong values, things like loyalty, honesty, and respect. He made it very clear that cheating wasn't something he'd tolerate. I always took that seriously. And I assumed Jenny did too, back then? I was dating a guy named Rachel. We'd been together for about a year, and I really thought he was the one for me. Typical high school stuff. We hung out a lot, texted all the time, and he even met my dad and had dinner with us. He and Jenny got along well, but I didn't think much of it. I thought it was nice that they bonded. One day, I got out of track practice early. My coach had cut the session short, so I got home about an hour earlier than usual. I remember being excited about having some extra time to relax before everyone else got home. As I walked in, I noticed Jenny's car in the driveway, which was a bit odd since she was usually at work or out with friends. I didn't see her downstairs, so I figured she was in her room or something. As I headed upstairs, I heard voices, Jenny's and Rachel's, coming from my room. I stopped on the stairs, feeling this weird drop in my stomach. It didn't make sense. Why were they in my room? I brushed it off, thinking maybe they were looking for something, or Jenny was showing him a video game, but their voices, they sounded off. There was laughing, but it wasn't the casual kind. Something was different. I walked up the rest of the stairs, my heart pounding, and opened my door. There they were, together, on my bed. And yeah, I don't have to spell it out. You know what they were doing. It was like time froze. I stood there, staring. Rachel jumped off the bed, and Jenny just sat there, looking like a deer caught in headlights. I couldn't even process what I was seeing. My own sister and the guy I'd been with for a year. Everything I thought I knew about them shattered in that moment. I felt a wave of anger and betrayal mixed with shock. I couldn't even get words out at first. They both started talking at the same time, stumbling over excuses. Jake kept saying things like, it wasn't supposed to happen, and Rachel was going on about how they had feelings for each other. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I finally yelled, "Are you kidding me?" It was the only thing I could say as I stood there, my hands shaking. I told them both to get out of my room and out of my life. Rachel tried to talk, but I wasn't hearing it. I told her we were done right then and there. Jake? I didn't even know what to say to him. It felt like everything between us was broken in a way that could never be fixed. When they left, I just sat on the floor, staring at the spot where they'd been. I kept thinking about all the times they'd been together and how I hadn't noticed a thing. I felt like the biggest idiot. How long had this been going on? How many times had they lied to me? That night, I wandered around for hours, not knowing what to do or where to go. I didn't want to go home. I couldn't face Jake and I definitely didn't want to see Rachel again. I felt so lost and alone. When I finally got back home, Dad was in the kitchen. He could tell something was up right away. Normally, we'd talk about how practice went or what was for dinner, but this time, he just looked at me and asked, "What's going on?" At first, I tried to brush it off saying I was just tired, but Dad knew me too well. Eventually, everything came spilling out. I told him what happened, how I'd walked in on Jake and Rachel, and how they tried to apologize, like that would somehow make it better. As I talked, I saw Dad's face change. First, he looked confused, then just angry. I'd only seen him that mad a few times in my life. He clenched his fists, his face turning red. "Your own brother did this to you? With your girlfriend?" he asked, his voice tight with anger. All I could do was nod. Dad didn't say anything for a minute. Then he let out this deep breath and yelled for Jake to come downstairs. The house practically shook with how loud he was. I could hear Jake's footsteps on the stairs, and I knew this was about to get ugly. When Jake walked into the kitchen, he looked like he knew what was coming. He didn't try to deny it. He didn't even try to act like he didn't know why Dad was mad. Instead, he just looked at me with this weird mix of regret and frustration. Dad didn't waste any time. He started yelling at Jake, asking him how he could do this to his own brother. Jake tried to defend himself, mumbling something about how it wasn't planned, how they had feelings for each other. But Dad wasn't having it. "Feelings? You call betraying your own family feelings?" Dad shouted. Jake kept trying, his voice getting more desperate. But Dad cut him off. "There's nothing complicated about loyalty. You made a choice, Jake, and now you're going to live with it." Then Dad said something that shocked me.